well, I'm just gonna get an empty store, put a table in there, put We Buy Gold signs up, advertise, get people to sell us the gold, and then melt it and sell it. He's like, that's it. You're not gonna sell anything. You're not gonna. I was like, no, that's it. I think that's good. He laughed at me. He's like, that's the craziest thing ever, and I don't want to go partners with you. Like, I'll help you a little bit if you need something here or there, but whatever. And then like 6, 12 months later, I'm making millions and millions of dollars every month.
Yo, it's your boy, it's Phil Wham Bam Benamino. And as always, the show is free, but we ask you first and foremost, please subscribe. Go ahead and click the little alert button down there so you get all of our alerts and all our new material. This is the show about ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. And you know what? Today you're in for a treat. All you young kids, all you older kids, all you old men, women that want to learn how to earn money and what to do with the money when you earn it, this guy here today is going to help give some light on all of that. That's right. We're talking about owning over 100 different businesses. He's taken businesses from $1 million to 100 million. And we're happy to have Abraham Gray with us today. Hey, Abe, what's going on, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you making the time to come out here and share with the world your story, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun day.
It is going to be super awesome. So let's just get right into it, man.
Yeah.
How did you become an entrepreneur? Because I heard a little bit about your upbringing. You had a little tough upbringing. You were kind of a troubled kid.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah. So like you said, I had a weird upbringing. I kind of went from, family to family. And I just didn't like having people always be in charge and controlling me. So I was like, the way that I saw people could do whatever they want was when they made money. So I started making money when I was 15. Made a lot of money. I collected sports cards when I was younger. I turned that into a business. As I started making money, I was able to do whatever I wanted. People couldn't tell me what to do.
Sports cards. I'm just thinking about that because as a kid, you get these little cards and stuff. What was the most expensive card you had?
So I was a big collector in the 1980s, like mid 1980s. So baseball cards were worthless back then. But luckily, I grew up in Miami back when I was collecting at that point. In Miami, they didn't have a baseball team. They didn't have a basketball team. It was only football. So Dolphins, I was a big Dolphin fan.
Sure.
And I collected football cards. And back in 1986, when I bought the most amount of cards, Jerry Rice rookie card. So I had like dozens of Jerry Rice. I put together dozens of sets. I had so many 1986 top sets, and they weren't worth much at the time.
Right.
But I don't know, like 10 years later, when I started really getting in the business, or actually, it wasn't even 10 years later. It was probably like 5 years later. They started becoming worth a lot. And I started selling them, and they cost me at the time not even $1 each. They ended up being worth $50 and $80 and $100, and I had tons of them. So, yeah, and then when you started
50x. Can you imagine making 50x on everything you could sell?
And that was just 1986. So I actually started collecting in 1984. 1984 had Dan Marino rookies, John Elway rookies, Eric Dickerson, all kinds of really good stars. 1985.
They're all Hall of Famers.
They're all Hall of Famers. And they're the best. They're the best. Yeah. 85 never had anyone good, but 86, when I really collected a ton, that's when, Marino rookies, I had a few. Elway rookies, I had a few. 86, I had dozens of everybody. So
what's a Mark McGwire go for right now? I got a Mark McGwire.
There's so many different Mark McGwire. So there's an 84, 85 tops. That was kind of one most people had, but then there's special ones that are better. Now everyone wants graded cards. So graded cards is what is worth a lot. If they're not graded, they don't sell as much. Everyone I know now has graded cards. Back when I was doing it, it was just becoming a thing. But now, you have to have graded cards.
Gotcha. So I mean, it's a big deal even now today. I actually was at the UFC. They had an expo. Dana White was there with the Topps card.
Yep.
Gentlemen stuff. And they're giving out UFC cards, and I mean they're back around. I mean they're doing it again. Like cards are still a big thing.
Yeah. I mean it goes up and down. Like I remember I got out of it, and because I got into something better. But I have friends that I know from back then that are still in it, and they're making, good money. And it goes up and down. There were a few years where they were just killing it. Then it kind of slacked off over the past year or two. But it goes up and down. If you know what you're doing, you do the right stuff, you're gonna make money.
Gotcha. Now you talked about being in Miami and stuff. You talked about moving around family to family. Tell the viewers real quick, when you say family, like you had a mom, you had a dad, obviously, but from what I understand, you lived with both at a certain point in time. Then you moved around in foster care.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So my
journey.
parents got divorced when I was like 1 or before I was 2 years old, and I ended up living with my mom until I was about 8 or 9. Then I moved to my dad's and lived with him for maybe like 2, 3 years.
What made you move?
So honestly, I was a bad kid, meaning that I used to get kicked out of them. I got expelled from like 3, 4 schools when I was living with my mom. I just kind of did what I wanted. I was
What'd they expel you for? What was the worst thing you
mostly
did?
for being a class clown. Like I would just, act up in class, say stuff. I would fight a little bit, but it wasn't mostly fighting. It was mostly just not letting the teachers teach. Like I would just say whatever I wanted, make fun of whatever, and
You wanted to be the center of attention.
center of attention. Yeah. So that's what happened. And then of course I used to get in some fights, but
Kids, don't do that. Don't
No.
do that.
although do it, look what happened to me.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, but yeah. So I ended up. She couldn't handle me. There was no more schools that would take me. So I ended up moving with my dad. My dad just got remarried at the time. So I had him and then my stepmom. I lived with them for like I said, 2 to 3 years. Same thing happened there. I wasn't acting great in school. A little bit better because my dad had more discipline, but he had this new stepmom. I wasn't. It was weird for me. And I ended up moving out and just moving to a foster family when I was 12.
Let's talk about that real quick. How did that affect you emotionally? I mean, you're a little bit older now, so you can
Mm-hmm.
reflect back on that. But as a child and stuff, because there are kids out there today
Yeah.
that unfortunately their mom and dads aren't together, or perhaps not able to take care of the child, and
Uh-huh.
they're in a better home. They might not realize it. But what was it like when the first day when you walked into that home and you're like, okay, so this is my new place. This is my
Yeah, I mean it's weird, and you kind of get pissed off at everyone. Like honestly, what's crazy is I haven't talked about this much, but my mom, when I left her when I was 9, I wouldn't talk to her for like 2 or 3 years. Like I wouldn't talk to her. If she called, I would hang up. If she sent me a letter, I'd rip it up and send it back. Like I was so pissed because in a way I was like, she gave me up, but in a way, like looking back, like I would have done the same thing. Like that was the best thing for me. But
Isn't it funny how when we're going through something, we don't realize then
Yeah.
that we just feel the pain.
Yeah, yeah.
And then later in life, you turn around, you look back at it, and you're like, that was a blessing.
Oh, yeah,
And you
big
didn't even
time.
realize it. So,
Big time.
it happens.
So I didn't have a good relationship with my mom since I was 9. Like really, I never had a good relationship with her since then. It wasn't really her fault. I mean, she did the best she could do. She meant well. Another thing I don't think I ever talked about much, but she was bipolar. So she was like a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And back then,
You didn't have meds back then, probably
no, this
the way
is
they are
back in
today.
the early 80s. So I was born in 75. This is early to mid 80s is when I left her. So yeah, so it was weird. She
Mental health's real, man.
Yeah,
mental health's real. Yeah, a lot of
but like I
people
said,
face-
looking back, I know she did the best she could. I know she meant well. So, but at the time, I was a young kid. I don't know. I always had this like, if someone did me wrong or if I felt like in a weird way, I would just shut everyone down that I felt as part of it. So, yeah, I didn't talk to her for many years. And I was her only kid.
the foster family that took you in then. So do you remember them specifically?
Yeah.
Do you remember that day? Do you,
Yeah.
You stay still close with them now currently?
Yeah, I mean, we still talk. We still talk a few times a year. I mean, I'm not like super close, but like they're really good people. The first person was actually someone that I had a friend. Well, I had a classmate. It was the classmate's parents. They're like, oh, this person's having a problem. Let's bring them in and stuff like that. So it was someone like I sort of kind of knew, not really well, but a little bit. So that was the first one. And the problem with that was, again, I just wasn't behaving in school and different things. So it just didn't make sense. So I moved to another one. Same thing happened. And then I ended up going to a boarding school that was for kids that didn't behave. It was actually for kids that didn't behave or kids that were into drugs.
Right.
I never got into drugs. I was never in drugs. I never really did any of that stuff. But I was always really bad.
Yeah.
I was bad throughout, up until I was, my late teens, actually. But
Well, it sounds like you're kind of rejected. I mean, you've been rejected.
Yeah.
So you're rejecting everybody around you too. And that's kind of part of, what's inside of you and stuff. So, explain to me how you turn that into such a positive movement within your life. Like, when did you start saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start making money. I know you started doing the baseball cards, but when did the light bulb go off?
yeah, I mean, so I was always like very creative, and I was street smart. I wasn't book smart. Like I never got good grades, but I always got the upper hand on everybody. I knew how to talk my way out of stuff. So I did all that stuff when I was younger in a bad way. Like, and I was like, I could do that same stuff, but in a good way to progress. So I turned it into, in my businesses and started making money doing it. And I was like, you know what, this is way more fun. People now, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm actually going to make money. I'm going to be able to buy what I want. I'm going to be able to invest and do more stuff. And it just made sense. So I just kept growing it and and I just saw like how much better I was than other people at what I was doing, because there's no business out there that's a great business or a bad business. Like no matter what business that exists, the people that do the best in that business are going to be super successful. The people that don't know what they're doing are going to lose money, whether it's the best business that exists. So whatever I did going forward, I always want to be the best at whatever I did. And I use, my creativity and, whatever I knew to do that.
What's your benchmark to decide, okay, I'm at my best? Obviously a man, and you've owned what, over 100 different businesses?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hundreds of businesses.
Tell us about some of the businesses you've owned, some of the most successful ones.
Yeah.
And what some of the ones that the viewers may know of right away.
So my most successful business was called Goldmax. It was where we bought gold from people. We bought diamonds. We bought watches, anything that of value really. And that was from like 2007 to about 2014. About 7 years I had that.
Is that more like a pawn type of thing? People come in, bring their jewelry in.
I have a crazy story about that, but yeah. So basically, there was that cash for gold, mail your cash for gold, and that was like the only people that really did it. And I came up with this idea with my partner and some friends that we should actually do it, but instead of doing mail in, like let's get a store, put a table out, let people come, and we'll just buy their gold. So that's what we did. We were the first ones in the country to do that. We started, we rented some store space, and at the time the economy was bad, so you could get the best employees, the best locations, everything for really cheap. So I just tried it. We got like 2 or 3 locations. They killed it. Like within the first month or two, they made crazy money. So then we just expanded from 3 to 5 to 10. Eventually, we had over 300 stores all over the country.
Wow!
But that was the biggest one. So I didn't know crap about jewelry. And what's crazy is every business I have, I didn't know crap about any of the businesses really. Like I know nothing about business, about those, about that particular industry. But you don't have to. You learn. So. This is, I went to a friend of mine that was in the jewelry business, and I'm like, you know what? I want to start doing this and growing it. We're doing good, but I don't really know jewelry that well or diamonds. You want to go partners with me and do this together? And he's like, all right, explain to me what you're going to do. And keep in mind, this guy has a couple jewelry stores and is successful. I was like, well, I'm just going to get an empty store, put a table in there, put We Buy Gold signs up, advertise, get people to sell us the gold, and then melt it and sell it. He's like, that's it? You're not going to sell anything? You're not going to? I was like, no, that's it. I think that's good. He laughed at me. He's like, that's the craziest thing I ever. And I don't want to go partners with you. Like, I'll help you a little bit if you need something here or there, but whatever. And then like 6-12 months later, I'm making millions and millions of dollars every month.
Wow.
Well, at some point I was making millions of dollars every month, but I was making millions and millions of dollars every year in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And he, at that point it was too late. I didn't need him anymore. He was like, damn. We still talk. He's like, man, I should have done that shit with you. Yeah, that was $100 million profit business in that 7 years. And he was like, yeah, no, that's the stupidest idea ever, and didn't do it.
So what did it take to get started? I mean, did you have money put away? Like, how did you raise the money? What did you do to get started?
Yeah, so I never really had much money. I mean, I got some birthday money or different things, and I saved it. But keep in mind, every single money that I got when I was younger, for whatever it was, I would buy baseball cards. So that's how I got started. Like when I was 15, I started selling my cards, and they were worth a lot of money when I was 15, 16 compared to what they were when I was 9, 10 when I started collecting them, like that Jerry Rice rookie.
Right.
And Dan Marino. So that's how I had all my money, from my cards. So no one gave me the money, but I just got luck. Really, it was all luck. Like I just happened to collect the right stuff at the right time. Unfortunately, Miami didn't have a basketball team, because I would have collected basketball cards in 1985, 1986, 87. I would have tons of Michael Jordan rookies and all this other stuff. But still, football cards happened to be good at that time. So I just used the baseball cards to sell them. As I got paid, I would invest it into more stuff, and then just kept reinvesting it, and eventually it became real. So when I was 15, put in perspective, this is like around 1989, 1990, I was making between $500 and $1,000 a week. And then when I was 16, I was making multiple thousand a week, and 17 thousands of thousands. So it was all from the baseball cards and just reinvesting it as I sold it into better stuff. And
see, I think that's the key, and I want the viewers to know this. Reinvesting. You mean you didn't take the money and just go out and buy a new car?
I never bought.
You didn't take the car and
stuff.
just go buy some new shoes
No,
and
never.
do modifications. These kids today, they're putting exhaust systems on their cars. They're trying to have decked out. They're trying to be that millionaire lifestyle.
Yeah.
when they really don't have a millionaire.
You can't do that until you
millionaire
have
mind.
until you have a lot of money. You can't do that. I never spent money on anything besides just reinvesting and making more money. That's all it is. Even to this day, like the stuff that I really want, I'll buy. But most stuff I don't care about.
Yeah.
I don't care what people think. I don't have like fancy clothes or anything like that. It doesn't matter. No jewelry.
Right. Gotcha. Everybody has that thing of what they want. I always tell people there's a needs and there's a wants. You need certain things in life to survive and go. The wants come afterwards, but you got to fulfill one before you get the other. And it sounds like you did that, and so it made you successful. Reinvesting is the key. I tell so many kids. My own son. He does the same thing. He makes money, and it's like, hey, you need to reinvest it into other things, and then when that makes money, then go get something that you want.
Exactly.
Type of thing. So
that's the problem with most people. They don't do that. If everyone did that, they'd be fine. Like I see so many people just waste all their money. I'm like, what are you doing? And the craziest thing is people will talk to me and be like, oh, but I don't make as much money as you. Or I don't make as much money as this person. I can't. I'm like, how much do you make? And they tell me, I'm like, all right, put $50 aside a week. Put, $10 aside a week. Even though it's not a ton of money, it builds great habits, and then you'll start reinvesting that, and it compounds, and eventually you'll just get in the habit of doing more and more and more, and then realizing how much money you're wasting that you could save.
Right.
And then once you make enough and you have tons of money, then do whatever you want.
Right. Talk about your businesses that you went ahead and invested in that didn't go over so well.
Yeah.
Over 100 businesses. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You're fairly young. You're not an old guy.
A little bit younger than you.
Yeah, you are. But that's what I'm saying. You're real young because I'm real young. I just ask me. But at the end of the day, I'm sure there's some businesses that didn't go as well as you wanted them to do.
Of course.
What was the most failing business you had?
So my biggest failing business, at the time, that perspective of what I had and what was going on was back 2001. I started a haunted house business, and I spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars building this out, employees, all kinds of stuff, and it went to crap. So I learned a lot from that. I had a couple partners in that business that basically screwed me. It was bad timing. I didn't know about the right marketing. I didn't know about the haunted house business. I didn't have someone that's been in it for a long time that was able to teach me. That's really important, by the way. Anytime you do a business that you don't really know a lot about, you make sure that you have someone that knows that business really well to help you and teach you, because there's a few ways to learn. One is by making mistakes and learning from it.
Right.
Another way is to get someone that already knows everything to teach you. And that's kind of what I've been doing ever since then. Like, no matter what I get into, I have the person that really knows a lot teach me, so I don't make those crazy mistakes. But yeah, haunted house. So, I lost a few $100,000 back. This is in my early 20s, mid 20s, which was not a big deal. I had enough money to lose it, but it still sucks to lose a few $100,000.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of money. Let's just be honest, especially in your 20s.
Yeah.
Most kids don't make that kind of money, type of thing. So what got you to that point where you could say, hey, you know what? I can go ahead and take a shot at 200,000 and throw in there. Where was it prior to?
So what I have been doing ever since probably 19, 20, 21 is I would try a whole bunch of businesses. I come up with these crazy ideas, and I'm like, all right, I think this will do good. I think this will do good. And I'll come up with, and I have a whole system of how I come up with them, but I'll try a bunch, and I'll put a little bit of money into some based on how much money I have to invest. And usually 7 out of the 10 or 8 out of 10 don't work out. But the 2 that work out, I make a ton of money on. Wow. And I've been doing this over and over, every few years. So I basically learned how to realize something's not going to do good and just get rid of it fast, because if you keep doing something that's bad, you're going to lose all your money. So it's kind of like poker. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Right.
So you've got to realize at some point, okay, look, I tried it, it didn't work, and you got to get rid of it. Most people that I know that lose most of their money or lose a lot of their money is they're so stubborn. They have this great idea. They think it's a great idea, and they keep just putting more and more money into it, and they don't know when to just cut it off. They want to get all their money back, so they put good money to chase the bad money, and that's the problem. So I'm really, really good with not doing that. So I'll just get rid of crap and then just keep the good ones.
What's your rules on that? Like, if you got $1 million sitting aside, what percentage are you willing to invest? What percentage do you feel comfortable? Are you saying I'm all in? Or
you could be all in, but you can't be all in on one thing. Like if you're all in with 10 things, then you have your odds at least. So my rule of thumb is, this is kind of how it's worked, is where I tried 10 things. Maybe I put, $10,000 in each thing. 8 of them will lose $10,000. I lost 80 grand. The two that do well, one of them will make 200 grand, one will make $1 million. So overall, I'm making a ton of money. So it's okay to lose on 80% of the stuff you do. You just got to know not to lose too much.
Right.
So that's kind of the main rule of thumb. Just make sure you do enough stuff to where, you know, the good ones you maximize, and the bad ones you kind of get rid of as fast as you can.
You know, Mark Cuban's always said it. You only have to be right once.
Yeah.
You know, you could try all kinds of different things, but if you're right once, it's all it takes. So
Exactly.
don't stop. The problem is I think people don't utilize their money and budget it in the proper way, like you're saying. They say, hey, okay, if I have 100 grand, then pick 10 things. I got 10 grand to invest in 10 different opportunities
Yeah.
to look at those. You know, being a young kid and a young entrepreneur, who did you model after? Like, who gave you the insights and the knowledge to say, okay, this is what I need to start doing? I mean, you're a troubled kid. You're foster home, the foster home.
Yeah.
I mean, where did you come up with
So
this?
I had a couple people, luckily, when I was younger, that for some reason just liked me. I don't know. They saw something in me. I don't know what. I don't know what they could have seen.
You're a likable guy, Abraham. Come
Yeah.
on, man. Look at that smile.
Well, I actually always was a likable guy. I'm a likable guy, but yeah. So a couple people just were like, "Look, you know, let me, you know, come by, let me talk to you, let me work with you." So I had a couple people that would, you know, just guide me in the right direction. And then when I was in the baseball card business, you know, I was 15, 16, 17, 18. There were guys that were like 25, 30, 35 that were doing well, that I would hang around them and be like, all right, why are you doing better than everybody else? You know, because only the top 5, 10% actually did really well. So I kind of hung around them, and they saw something in me. We would do deals together, and I learned a lot from the people that were the best.
Yeah.
And eventually I surpassed all of them.
That's great. That's great. So many kids today don't realize that spending the time to learn. You know, it's like, hey, I want to be like this person. I want to be like that. Well, hang around those types of people, and you may, you know, type of thing. I mean, they're sitting there scrolling on the phones and they're watching their lives, but
Yeah.
are they actually learning from them, and are they practicing what they learn?
And
you know, type of thing.
and I bought a couple programs from different people, like Tony Robbins. I would listen to him when I was younger. I bought a couple of
Love
his,
Tony, yeah.
you know, cassette tapes, and you know, super motivating, and you know, you learn stuff. And then, you know, when I was 22, I got into real estate, and I did business and real estate. And I had someone that got me into it that taught me a little bit. I started buying some, you know, cassette tapes about how to buy real estate with no money, and
So let's talk about that, because I know you hit it big in the real estate world.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of kids today that are 19, 20, 21 years old saying, you know, because I even get the phone calls. Hey, you know, I call Coach B, Wham Bam. You know, I want to know, I want to get my first home. You know, what should I do and stuff? What would you tell these kids? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, so getting your first home, there's a lot of different ways. You know, you've got to go to, first off, all the local meetups. Join all the Facebook groups in your neighborhood, or in your market. There's so many Facebook groups, especially if you're in a big market. And there's probably also a lot of local meetups. Actually, we have a local meetup today in Atlanta. I'm actually going to when I leave here.
Oh, yeah?
It's at 3:00. But yeah,
Nice.
it's right by the Braves Stadium. But we have a local meetups in Atlanta, at least one a week, if not more. So I'll go to like at least 2 or 3 of them a month. You get to meet people there. You tell them what you want to do. People will help you. Right now, there's so many cool creative strategies how to buy homes with not having any credit, not having any money. So you could buy owner finance properties, subject to properties where people keep the mortgages in their place. So actually, I just got a home that I have someone in my office that's 20 years old.
Yeah.
They're gonna buy it from me in a couple weeks, and they don't have to come up with that much money, and they don't have none of their credits pulled. It's a deal that I bought off someone that already has a mortgage at 3.5%, and we're just keeping the mortgage in place. And you know, I was gonna just keep paying their mortgage, but now this other person, they're gonna keep paying the mortgage and giving the seller like whatever down payment they want. And
So
that's
what
it.
you're telling me is somebody lived in a house at a 3.5% mortgage, and they said, like, if it was me and you came to me and said, hey, I want to buy your home.
Yeah.
I want to take over your mortgage for you and give you X amount of dollars above.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work?
So this particular house, there's a million different scenarios. A lot of times people can't make their mortgage payments, so they're pre-foreclosure. But this particular house, they weren't in pre-foreclosure. They wanted to get probably about $25,000 more for their house than they could get if they put it on the market. If they put it on the market, you know, keep in mind you're going to pay real estate fees and you're competing with other people. So what we said was, look, we could give you a little bit more money for your house than what you can get. Actually, a lot more than you can get on the market, because we'll pay you a little bit of premium, plus you won't have any realtor fees. But you got to keep your mortgage in place. You have a great mortgage. You don't have a ton of equity, but like if you sold it on the market, you'd probably get $0, or maybe you have to come up with a little money to pay the real estate agents and closing costs. But because if you sell it to us, we'll actually give you $15,000. You don't have to pay any realtor fees, and the mortgage just stays in place. And now we're going to be responsible for paying it every single month. If we don't pay the mortgage, we will sign something basically saying that you get the house back, and whatever money we gave you, whatever money we spent rehabbing the property, you get it all back. So we give them collateral to where now the property stays in their name, not the deed. The deed gets switched. So we own like if you look for the owner, we'll be the owner. But if you look for who's on the mortgage and whose credit it's on the previous person. So they got to be good with keeping the mortgage in their name. If someone pulls their credit, it's going to be on there.
Right, it's going to show.
But there's a lot of ways around it. And it's very beneficial for people that want to get a lot more money for their house, especially if they have to go to closing and lose money. This person was moving, and actually at the time, they were already gone. So they're paying a double mortgage, and they can't afford it. And they couldn't sell it on the market and get any money because there wasn't enough equity. So by selling to us, we were able to pay them. They're done with the mortgage. So, depending on the person's situation, if people want to get more money for it, if people are pre-foreclosure and don't have much equity, these are strategies that work really well for those types of people.
What would happen though, 10, 15 years down the road, the guy realizes this property comes back on his lap and it's like, boom,
Well,
we were making a payment for 15 years,
Yeah.
but now all of a sudden things didn't go so well and the house isn't worth what we thought it would be. And we just figured just stop paying it. And now it's back to yours.
Yeah. So they're not
That's
in
kind
any,
of a risk, ain't it?
it's a little bit of risk, but let's talk about that. So
Yeah.
first off, they're not in any worse shape off than they were when they sold it. So they're not really in any worse shape.
Because they couldn't afford it then.
They couldn't afford it then.
Then,
So you got to
You bought them 15 years.
You should definitely vet the person you're doing it to, because if you just give it to someone and they're not the right person, yeah, that could happen.
Good point.
But keep in mind, you're talking about 10, 15 years down the road. Properties appreciate. Now, there are down markets every decade, a couple years where, they tank. But for the most part, the property's going to be worth a lot more money in 15, 10 years. So no one's going to give them the property and not pay for it 10, 15. First off, they're going to be paying it down for 15 years. They're going to have so much more equity. The principal pay down over those 10, 15 years is going to be tremendous. So nobody would ever give someone a property back. But it'll appreciate and be worth more. But let's just say you took it back and the market was in a downturn and you get it back and you're not in the best situation. The rental market doesn't usually shift that much. So you could always, at worst case, usually rent it and, make a little bit of money on it.
I was going to ask you, is that what are you doing with those properties? Are you renting them? Are you trying to flip them? Are you trying to resell them?
I rent
'Cause
most
then you pay them off. You're done.
Yeah. So most of the deals I buy creatively, like with that owner finance or that's taking them over subject to the mortgage staying in place, most of those I rent out. So
Explain the viewer subject to, just for those.
So subject to is when, and it's on every single settlement statement, HUD statement. It's basically saying, look, I'm going to buy your property for $300,000, subject to you keeping your $280,000 mortgage in place, and it stays in your credit. Now the deed gets switched, so the deed and the mortgage are two separate things. The mortgage is who has the debt. The deed shows who the ownership is, and it can be two different people. So typically, what we'll do is we'll get the deed in our name when we close. So let's say it's a $280,000 mortgage and we're buying it for $300,000. We're going to give them $20,000 at closing. They're done. Instead of why pay off the $280,000 mortgage to get a new mortgage when their mortgage is at 3.5%, when mortgage rates right now are 7%. I'm paying double. It makes no sense. So that's the reason why I could pay so much more for their property. A normal person might only be able to pay $270, $260 for that property because they have to get a new mortgage. The interest rate's gonna be higher. Their payment's gonna be higher. My payment's gonna be half the price because I'm taking over, because I'm getting such a lower interest rate and such a lower payments and a better principal pay down. I can now pay an extra $20,000, $30,000 more for the property than anybody else. So, and then I don't have to put it on my credit. And
No, I mean that totally makes sense. From the seller's point of view, though, I'm trying to wrap my head around. I mean, I get it. They're in a bad situation, so they can't afford it. So it's a good way of getting out.
They're not always in a bad situation.
But the reality is, how do they go out and buy another home?
Yeah, so
because they have this debt that's over their head right now currently.
So there's a few ways to do it. Well, first off, keep in mind, a lot of the people we're buying these from are behind on their mortgage or can't afford it. So they're not going to be able to go buy another home anyway, anytime super soon. But keep in mind, most of these people are behind, so their credit is really shot because they're, have late payments, all this stuff. As soon as I take it over and buy it, I start catching everything up, and I'm making payments on time, early, every single month.
So
their credit goes better, gets better and better and better. And then over the
true.
next few years, now their credit's really good instead of it being shot. And they don't have to, go through bankruptcy. They don't have to go through foreclosure.
Hey, did you ever think about doing that with cars? I mean, so many people out there with cars
are
and
people
they
that
get
do it with cars.
repoed and stuff like that. But
There are people that do it with cars. The problem with cars is this. Properties appreciate every year. So it's a good asset. Cars go down every year.
That's right.
So the only way that it makes sense doing it with cars, if you have like a Turo business or something like that, or yeah, if you just need your car, you want a car and you can't get your own credit. So people do it with cars. There's actually a whole website where that is very popular. And I look at it all the time. But the people that do Turos are the main people that want to do that. But again,
Do you like Toro? Do you like Toro? What's your feelings about that?
do I like Turo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Turo. I actually
Yeah.
have a Turo business in with somebody in Phoenix, Arizona. So
Gotcha.
we have like 18 cars or something.
Yeah, I got into the exotic car rental, so messed around with it out in Miami and stuff, and actually doing some here in Atlanta. So
It's
just
a lot
kind
of
of
work.
curious.
It's a lot of work.
a lot of work.
I mean, it sounds great, but like once you realize how much work it is, it's is it that great? But again, if you have someone that's going to operate it and run it, then it's good.
Yeah.
So you got to have that person that's committed.
I just know as renting from Toro, I've never had really a good experience as a renter. When I've done that out of town.
I've never rented from Turo. I just get rent a cars. Yeah.
There you go.
But a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
So.
So these houses that you've been buying, and I don't know if this is true or not. So I'm going to ask you flat out: is it true that you bought a house every single day for a whole year?
Yeah. In 2021 and
That's
most
incredible.
of 22, I was buying 25, 30 homes a month.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How the hell did you do it?
So-
I mean, were you loaded at the time, or is this
I'm always loaded.
You're always loaded.
I'm always loaded. Yeah, I have plenty of money, and I use cash for my own cash for most.
How
of
do
the
you do it?
properties.
That's what I'm saying. How do you do it?
Yeah.
Because you
Well,
must be buying cash at that point.
Yeah, I buy cash, or I'm buying these creative deals.
All right, so let's talk about that real quick. Because now I'm gonna shift for a second. IRS. How do you deal with that when you're spending cash on homes left and right?
Well, it's not cash. I mean, it's wires,
Yeah,
But
but-
here's the great thing.
how does that work?
I'm happy you brought up IRS.
Yes.
So that ever since I've been doing this crazy amount of real estate, I pay like almost no taxes now. And pretty much going forward, I think I could get it to where I'm paying no taxes, 100% legally. But here's the thing.
Preach, man, preach to me. Because right now I got the
Yeah.
IRS on my ass so
Yeah.
bad.
So
4 years in a row, been audited. It's horrible.
yeah.
So
This is the crazy thing about the subject to and owner finance properties too. You are able to depreciate your properties. If you have rental properties or long-term properties that you keep, obviously fix and flips don't count because you're turning the money.
Right.
But it's good to do a lot of fix and flips because you make that fast cash. But you got to keep a certain amount of long-term rentals, whether they're single family, whether they're commercial, doesn't matter. You get to depreciate them every year. So I own so many properties, and I'm buying so many new properties every year that I get to depreciate them. And I'm buying and keeping like $10 million plus worth of properties every year. So I get to so they used to have this appreciation where you get to depreciate over like 27 and a half years equally. Well, over the last, 6 years or so, or maybe it's been 8 or 10 years now, they have this thing called accelerated depreciation. And you could depreciate almost a third of it the first year and then the rest over the rest of the time. So if you buy $1 million property and you could depreciate it about a third of it, let's say 30%,
Right.
300,000, you get 300,000 off your taxes every single year, 300,000 of profit that you made. So if you're in a 40% tax bracket, you're going to pay 120 grand on that 300,000 you made. So for every $1 million worth of property you buy, you're going to get a $300,000 credit. And if you're in a 40%, that's going to save you 120,000 of taxes you don't have to pay that year. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last like 3-4 years. So I've been paying, pretty much almost no taxes because of all my depreciation. Now, if I ever go to sell those properties, I'm going to have to pay it all back unless you do a 1031 exchange, and then you can put it in another property and just keep delaying it forever.
Right.
That's like what all the
Is that
rich
one of your
people do.
strategies?
Oh, yeah,
Do you
yeah,
do that?
yeah,
Do
now.
you do a lot of 1031s on that?
Well, if I sell properties, yeah, but I do so much. I buy so much property on creatively and in all different ways that I have so much money worth of property I'm buying. I just bought $6 million worth of property about a month and a half ago from one person, and I bought some shopping centers that are $5 million, $6 million. So I mean, some years I'm buying tens of millions, tens of millions of dollars of property, and that covers all the amount of money I'm making, so I don't have to pay the taxes. But
What's your rule of thumb when you're spending? You're buying let's say a plaza, $5 million. What's your rule of thumb of what that plaza has to bring back to you in rental rate or income and stuff?
So so I'm really big in residential. I buy tons of residential. Like when I was buying one a day, it was basically 99.9% residential.
Was there a sweet market, like a number, like 300,000 range, 400?
Yeah,
what was your range?
Between 1 and 350 was a sweet range. So I mean, the average 150 to 250.
Can't find them these days, right?
You still could. I'm good at finding them.
Yeah.
Again,
Nice.
I'm on every Facebook group. Everyone that's an investor in Atlanta knows me. I go to all the local meetups. I speak at most of the local meetups. So people,
Well, you're a buyer. They
Yeah.
better know you. I
they
mean,
know me.
buying
So-
a house a day.
And everyone refers people to me. So I literally get 100 emails a day with properties being sent to me. Now, 99% of them are shit, but like you just need one good one, right?
That's right. That's right.
So that's with the properties. But when you're buying these creative properties, which I buy about one a week, every week for years now, I've been buying about one a week. And that's like a seller finance or that subject to property. I'm on average putting down 10%, 12%. On the high side, 15, 20% is like crazy high, but usually 10 to 15% on the really high side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm buying a property worth $100,000. I'm using easy numbers, $100,000. I'm putting down 10%. I'm putting down $10,000. I'm now renting it. I'm making $200-300 a month on the rental. And sometimes I make $1,000, $400, but on average, close to $200-300 a month. I just put $10,000 cash into it. I have a $100,000 property. At the end of the year, I'm going to get that $100,000 property. I'm going to go ahead and do an accelerated depreciation on, and that is going to save me $30,000, $25,000 in taxes. So I just paid $10,000, but at the end of the year, I'm getting back $25,000, $30,000. So as long as you could buy properties for, 10, 15% down, you could pretty much get the property for free. I'm basically getting all these properties for free because I'm not paying. Now, if you don't have any taxes that you owe at the end of the year, then it doesn't help you as much. But if you are making money in other businesses, fix and flips or any other business, not real estate, the more property that you buy and keep, you get all these depreciations that you're actually going to make money by buying them because the taxes you're not going to have to pay. I remember back when I was making crazy money back in my gold business, there were so many other tax strategies besides owning properties and appreciating them where it's crazy. I'm not a tax person, so I don't know, but I know like a few different strategies we were using back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to not pay much taxes. Now, I could show you checks actually that I wrote in 2011 to the IRS for like $3+ million. Like I paid a lot of taxes. It was way less than I was making that I should have paid because we had a lot of write-offs. Yeah. But we used to do like these captive insurance policies where you would basically have an insurance company that you would start, and you would insure your businesses for like the craziest things, like a meteor hitting or a dinosaur, tearing up your. Yeah, you basically insure stuff that's impossible to happen, and you would claim the money on your captive insurance company, and you pay a lot less taxes on that than you would. It's like half the rate. So there's a lot of ways to like. Instead of paying, a 40%, you could pay
That's interesting.
20%. Yeah. So, and people, you can still do that.
Yeah.
So, then another thing we used to do is, there's like all these different things and a lot of people still do it. The IRS is kind of like getting a little bit harder on it, but you could buy like all this like rural land in your state and buy it for like pennies on the dollar and then donate it to the government. And you would get like you get it appraised for like 10 times more than you paid, and you would donate it, and you would get that whole write-off for the whole thing that it appraised for, but you're paying pennies on the dollar, and then you're spending some money buying it, but you're saving 10 times that on taxes. So there's a million there's probably 100 different strategies, but if you make a lot of money, you should definitely spend the money and get the best accountants that you can, because they could literally save you crazy amounts of money. I mean, I literally save millions and millions of dollars every single year on taxes because I did all these different things, and
Did you ever get audited?
100%.
Yeah,
you're making a lot of money. So we did get audited, but everything we did was 100% legal.
Right.
The only thing that I've ever had an issue with, we used to do a lot of these where we'd buy the property, donate it to. So we've had a few of those audited to where they were like, you know what? You appraised we're not going to go with your appraisal of that being worth this much money. We're going to, so we have to pay some taxes back, but we still save money. But like sometimes they'll audit that. But most of the ones I did were 100% good. There was a couple that were just really expensive ones that they audited. But again, the best thing to do, honestly, to save money is just buy a lot of property, and you could depreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. It's so funny because people that, if you got $10 million and you made $10 million, say you sell a business, you make $10 million, 40% of that's gone.
Yeah.
They're going to get 4 million of it. Yeah. So how do you protect that? Because it's like you don't even want to sell because you're giving away almost half your business and what you worked your butt off to earn over the years.
That's one of the ways that we talk people into doing seller finance on a lot of properties. They're like, look, you're going to pay most of the money to the government at 40 whatever percent rate. If you seller finance it, you're going to be at a less rate because you're not getting all the money up front, and then you could use that money to do other investments, and you don't have to figure it out all at one time. You could do it over time and probably get a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, the way to do it, if you're going to make $10 million on something, buy $40 million worth of property, and you get to write off, a good bit of it. And again, find a good deal and get a loan, or find some owner finance and subject to properties. And again, you don't save the money on taxes for the actual cash that you're spending. It's for the purchase price. So even if you put 3% down, you get credit for the whole thing. So just buy a lot of properties that cash flow, buy a lot of properties at a good deal, or buy a lot of properties at, creatively, where you're putting down a small amount on a subject to or owner finance, and use that all as write-offs.
So are you big in financing then when it comes to that, using other people's money, using the bank's money? You treat them like they're your partner.
Every person that's super successful, super wealthy is using other people's money. I mean, I try to use my own money for as much as possible, but I try to also get as much money from other people at the same time. I mean, I'm able to make 18 to 24+% on anything I do. So if I could borrow money for less than that, I'm making money. So right. I'm always looking to get money from people. What
do you think right now? What's a good rate to really kind of judge, if you can make off of money? What's out there now? What do you think's good and bad?
So I do a lot of lending. So I'm big in the real estate community. So I do a ton of lending for fix and flippers. People that fix and flip properties, I loan out crazy amounts of money, in the tens of millions I have out all the time. And the lowest rate that I get is 18%.
Gotcha.
But keep in mind, these are short-term loans, and the average loan is 6 months. They're paying me 1.5% a month. So anything I could borrow money at for less than that, I'm making money. But I usually could borrow money between 8 and 12% right now, and I'm just using it to make more money on it.
Right, exactly. Do you find that anybody's defaulted on that stuff and what it's like afterwards?
Defaulted on loans that I give them?
Yeah, loans.
So I'm very, very safe when I loan people money. As you know, I buy a ton of property myself, and I only loan money in the Atlanta market. I only really buy and fix and flip in the Atlanta market. So I know you could tell me a zip code, you could tell me a year build, square foot. I'll know exactly what it's worth. But I will loan people up to what I'll pay for it. So if they don't pay me, I just foreclose and I take the property. I make more money because the size of interest that I would have got, I'll make an extra 20, 30, 40 grand after I fix and flip the property, after I take it back. In Georgia, because we're in Georgia, Georgia has some of the best laws for foreclosure, for all these different things. So in Georgia, you have to advertise the property for 30 days. And then the first Tuesday after that 30 days, you can foreclose. So it's like less than 2 months, you can foreclose on anyone. So if someone doesn't pay me and we don't work something out, a payment plan or something, I'll foreclose and I'll get the property back in less than 2 months and I'll sell it and make more money.
Right. What banks do you use right now currently?
So I've been using a lot of bigger banks, but lately I've been now working with a lot of smaller banks. So smaller banks will do a lot more stuff. But, I have Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo that I do a lot of stuff with. But now I'm noticing that I have GBC. I have a lot of small banks that I'm working with, coastal banks and community banks that will do a lot of stuff that big banks won't do.
So looking right now, money markets, right? Right now they're paying pretty decent. You can get 5.25%. Some people are getting a little bit more, some a little bit less, depending on that. And it's safe. It's safe money. How do you feel about that? Or is that just not enough to wet your whistle?
I mean, if people don't have a better way to make money, that's great. There's nothing. I mean, I have so many ways to make 18, 20% plus, no matter what I do. I have so many different ways. So for me, anything less than that is horrible. But if you are making 5%, you're happy with it, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I have a lot of people that were making, 5%, 4%, whatever, that now invest money with me because I pay them like a monthly interest and I give them collateral on the properties that we're loaning money on. And they're making, 10, 12%. So I have a lot of people that do that. But no, I would say you should only put your money in something you feel really comfortable with and you're safe with. Like, don't just put your money in something and gamble and not know what you're doing. So if that's the best thing and that's good for you, then do it. If you have people that you could invest money with and put money in it and make a higher percent and you feel super secure and safe with it, then you should.
Yeah. What drives you? You know?
Yeah. What drives me is just the progression. I like to see something I did today that I couldn't have done or I didn't do yesterday. So just being able to do better than you were before is probably what progress, one of the things that really get me going. But now, I have 3 kids and they're still young and they're in school. One's 16, one's 14, one's 12. I think once they get old enough to where they're out of school and they start doing their own business, I think that will push me a little bit more because then I'll be able to, see what they're doing, be able to kind of do stuff with them and stuff like that. Right now it's kind of hard because they're in school, but yeah, I think that will be something in the future that will. How old are your kids?
Right now, I got 18-year-old just graduated. I'm finally done.
Yeah.
My daughter's 29. So,
Okay.
But I'm blessed and fortunate. They're actually both working for me. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to be able to go to the office, go to work, and have your kids there, trying to keep on the legacy and keep building what you started. So that's been fun. Whether they stay there or not, I don't know. But I just want them to find their way and do well. But money management's very hard for a lot of kids today. I've coached a lot of kids over the years and have a lot of kids come to me for advice. And a guy like yourself that's made $100 million of dollars. What would you tell a kid? You got $1,000. What would you tell them to do with that $1,000?
I would tell them to save a certain amount of it, invest a certain amount of it, and then use a very little bit of it for something that's fun, because it's only $1,000. Now,
It's so funny. Abe, this is my preach. Like, and I got a book I'm started about, but I do a 30-30, 10-10-10 rule. So it's 30% of your money. Cause I always try to teach the kids, who's your partner? Your partner's IRS. So you know what? If they're going to take 30% of your money on a regular scale, right? They're going to take 30% of your money. You as a partner need to learn to live off of 30% of that money too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make $1,000, $300 put away in a money market, safe, because the IRS is going to get it. Might as well make money off it while you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then 30% live off it. And then you got a 10% fund you put towards long-term investments, 10% fund put to short-term, riskier investments, 10% for an emergency type of fund, and then a 10% fund is what I call
love that
it.
stuff. Yeah, that's I was crazy when I was younger. I did something stupid. I mean, it wasn't stupid, but I would save 90% or invest 90%. And
I think
10%.
kids, you find they'll start doing that. Like my son, I noticed, I put him on that plan, told him that, and yes, he's saving more because he likes to see that number grow.
Yeah, it's exciting to see your bank account when you're younger and be like, oh man, it's bigger. Oh, I got a little bit of interest. It's kind of fun. So I would say, figure out how much do you really need to live. Like if you break down your living expenses and where you're spending all your money, you'll realize that almost everybody just wastes a ton of money. They don't realize it. But if you write down every single thing you're spending, you'd be amazed of what.
The first thing I did is, and I tell every kid, you should do this, go open up a credit card. Make all your expenses on a credit card. Because then you get to see at the end of the month what your bill is, adds up. When they're like, holy cow, how did I spend $1,800? Well, look, you're eating out at Moe's, you're eating here, you go to Zaxby's, you're doing this, and all of a sudden they start realizing, holy crap, that shit adds up.
And even on a bigger scale, like even when you're older or adult, maybe you're renting a space for $3,000. You need that $3,000 space. Like if you're super wealthy, fine, but what's wrong with the $1,800 space? There's nothing different. You're still going to have, a shower. You're still going to have, so some people just want something a little bit nicer than they need at the time. Everyone should get the nicest thing that they want, but at the right time.
I think it comes with a sacrifice, and that's the thing kids today don't understand. You have to sacrifice.
Oh, big time.
Let's be honest. I mean, you moving around, doing what you did, like there was a lot of sacrifices that went on before. You didn't just show up and there was a money tree out back and you went and start picking it.
Every successful person that's wealthy that has done that.
Oh
Everyone.
yeah. Pick the money off the money tree.
Yeah. You have to sacrifice.
That's right.
You can't get everything you want in the beginning. Eventually you could, but yeah. So, and the same thing with cars. Do you have to get that $40,000 car? Why not the $10,000 car?
Both
What's the
get you
difference?
there.
It
Both
still
get you there.
drives. It
Yep.
still gets you there.
Exactly.
You feel better with the 40, but do you need it?
Right.
So there's different things like that where people I never had the most expensive stuff. I had the cheapest car that would not break down. I had the whatever it was because I wanted to put all the other money. I wanted to see it grow.
Right, exactly, and that's a key. That's a huge key. Talk about the other businesses and stuff that you went at. Obviously, you're real successful in real estate, but you started a bunch of different businesses. You got axe throwing business. You started,
tons, yeah.
you got escape room businesses. Talk about some of your funnest business that you came up with and that you're most proud of. I mean, obviously, the most proud, I'm sure, the one you made the most money in.
Of course.
But there had been a couple little hobby things that you like to do that you did. I know you're into jiu-jitsu. Aren't you like a brown belt? You might even be a black belt by now. I don't know. What do you?
I've been doing jiu-jitsu 13 years, so I've been a brown belt for 3.5 years.
Yeah. What got you into that? Was it something to keep in shape, have fun?
Yeah,
Was it just discipline? What was it about?
So I did karate when I was younger. There was no such thing as jiu-jitsu, and I did it for a long time.
Did a Karate Kid, Danielson, all that.
I started karate the year Rumble in the Bronx Jackie Chan came out. That's when I really started getting into like full time. So
Gotcha.
whatever year that was, that's when I got into karate. But no, it was fun. I sparred a lot, and then I kind of quit. And then my kids were born, and then my kids, when they were 3 years old, I put them in karate, and so I went back in karate. And then
was it a midlife crisis though at that point in time? Or
I was like, it was just good timing. It made sense. I could do it with them. And at the karate studio, they started having jiu-jitsu classes. It wasn't there when I was doing it. So I was like, what is that? And I love watching UFC. And I kind of never understood exactly what people were doing, grappling on the, I didn't understand it.
Wrestling. So I was like, I was a big wrestler. So I wrestled at school. So I knew what that was about.
No submissions though.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. Well, and in wrestling, it's totally different. You don't want to be on your back.
Yeah.
In wrestling. And jiu-jitsu, it's okay to be on your back. You want to
not MMA, but jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
So they had a jiu-jitsu class. I joined it. I was doing karate and jiu-jitsu for a little while. And then I was like, you know what? Jiu-jitsu is just more fun. And that's kind of took off. From there, I just started doing jiu-jitsu, and that's how I really got into it. And
but you got some fights, man. You got some fights too that you did, right? You decided you wanted to compete with NFC. I think you competed with.
When I was 37 is when I started jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And
you were a late bloomer.
Yeah, late bloomer. But I mean, it wasn't that popular way before that.
Right.
And I did karate for so long, so I already knew stand-up. I was already good at stand-up. So I was like, let me do an MMA fight. Like I used to watch MMA. Like let's see how I want to see how I stand against other people. So I did my first MMA fight when I was 38.
It's so funny that you say that because Amar, who I know that you know as well, who's Amir, he was on our podcast as well, and he was talking about that. So many people come into his class and they learn, and they don't want to fight. They just want to learn. They say they want to learn. But eventually they end up fighting because they want to test themselves. They want to see what you did.
It's to test yourself. Now, when you test yourself, you should test yourself against somebody, equal to you or a little bit worse. You shouldn't test yourself against a stud. But yeah, so I've had 6 fights, all amateur fights. Yeah.
Wow. What's your record now?
2-4.
All right. Okay. So what was the first fight? Was it a win or loss?
No, I lost my first fight. It was my first 2 fights were decisions. My third fight.
So you made the distance. You went the distance.
Yeah, and they could have went either way almost. The third fight I got knocked out. And I felt the best too, but I got caught.
What was that like? Was that the first time you ever got knocked out?
Yeah, first time, only time ever.
Clipped, really?
Yeah.
What's it like? What's it mean? If people haven't been asleep or got knocked out, they don't know. They see it and they're like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what was going on. So I was down. Everyone said I was out for like 4 or 5 seconds, but like I got, I was conscious again after 5 seconds, and I just wanted to start fighting again. I was like, what do you mean I'm not? Like everyone's like, no, it's done. I'm like, wait, it's not done. Like, let's keep going. But yeah, and then, after that, I just had 4. So I was 38, then I was 39 at 40. So I did like 1 a year. And then in my 40s, I started doing like a few more. So my first 3 fights were against people like 22, 24, like pretty young.
Yeah.
But I still felt good, 38, 39, 40. And then my last few fights, I fought someone who was basically my age, really close. So they weren't like the biggest thing when you get older is your quickness goes away. Your quickness, you're not as quick,
and you think you're quick as hell.
You think you are. Yeah, and that's what happens. You're not as quick, but yeah, once you fighting someone your own age, then you're both kind of the same. So it's cool. But I would I quit. My last fight was like 5 years ago or something. I mean, I don't think I'd ever do one again, but you never know.
Right.
I'm thinking maybe when I turn 50 next year.
Yeah.
Because then it's be like, all right, I fought in my 30s, my 40s, and now I have one fight when I'm 50. It's gonna be.
So listen, man, guy with yourself, your status, you can do pretty much anything you want in the world. What's the craziest thing you've ever done, or the craziest thing you want to do?
As far as
just anything.
I mean, lately I've I go on trips every year or multiple trips every year with a bunch of friends. We go to different places. I've gone skydiving lately, bungee jumping.
Skydiving?
Yeah.
So what was
Jumped out
that
of a
like,
plane.
jumping out? Like,
That was
I
scary.
have no desire to do that at all.
I had no
God
desire.
didn't give me wings, man. I don't want me to fly.
I had no desire either. So I went on a trip with. It was actually an event. So I do these events where I teach people. I do these masterminds, and it was at one of my masterminds. I was like, you know what? After the mastermind's over, we're gonna do some cool event every single time. So we picked like crazy things. So one of them we picked skydiving. So there was like, I don't know, 50 of us that went. And man, I was really nervous when we were flying up, and then I'm sitting on the edge. I'm like, why the hell did I pick to do it? Like, am I an idiot? And then they push you out, and then
But
once you're out, you're good.
I hear that the planes that you go up in are the scariest planes.
They're small little
and they
planes.
do that on purpose because you want to jump out because
Yeah.
you don't feel safe in the plane.
It's true. It's true. It's true. But you're with someone, you're tied to them, so you're like, it's not that. You're probably gonna be okay.
Right.
But
What about running with the bulls? I ran with the bulls. You ever think
Did
of
you
that?
really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
no,
went to
I haven't.
Pompano.
I haven't done that in Spain or where?
Yeah. Pompano,
Really?
Spain. Yeah.
Oh,
Did
wow.
a 7-day event. It was crazy. Wild. It's probably the craziest thing I ever did. Probably the stupidest thing too, to be honest with you. You
it is a little crazy.
you think you're cool until you turn and you start running. You're like,
Yeah.
it's all chance.
Yeah, no, I haven't done that, but I mean, like I said, jumping out of a plane, the bungee jumping stuff, just different. There's activities that you put yourself through that you probably shouldn't, but
Yeah.
nothing crazy. I mean, now I just kind of relax. I hang out with the family on the weekends. So me and my kids go on a trip every single month. One weekend out of every single month, we go somewhere.
Rough life, Abraham.
Yeah.
These kids are spoiled. Now,
Yeah.
do you ever think of that you're spoiling your kids too much? Because I've been told that too. You know what I mean? Like, do you worry about that you're handicapping your children because you're giving?
So I don't give them a whole lot now, but I think the way they're spoiled is that they know that no matter what happens, like, okay, they could fall back on all right, my dad has plenty of money, like I'm
Right.
not really going to be bad. I don't really give them that much.
It's hard though, right? Because
Yeah.
as a parent, you want to give your kids what you had more.
Yeah.
Like that's what every parent's dream is. And when you have the ability to be able to do that, it's unfortunate because it's like, how much? When is enough enough? When do you stop? When do you cut it off?
The thing that's scary about giving them too much is that I don't want to see them waste it. Like I don't care if you give them too much if they do something smart with it, but like a young kid, like how smart are they going to be, with the money? So I just don't give them enough because I'm just I don't know what they're going to do with it. But like if they showed, look, responsible, I'm going to invest it, I'm going to do this, then it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. But if they're just going to go party or just blow it on stuff, you don't want to give it to them because that's just a waste.
Well, the one thing, you talked about taking trips every month and traveling, but I also know like traveling, you don't fly first class and all that, right? I mean,
No.
you're going to, why is that?
I never fly first class. I don't
why
know.
is that?
Well, if I was going overseas on a long trip, I'd consider it because it's not comfortable. But I just don't feel that I've flown first class a bunch of times because, and domestically, just because I've been upgraded because I'm, platinum or whatever. So they upgrade you for free. I just don't feel any different when I'm in coach or I'm in first class. It's not, it just doesn't excite me that much more. I don't know. Like to me, it's just kind of not.
That's just not one of your things. But the reality is you have the money to utilize.
Yeah.
It's a trip. You're
Yeah.
going to write it off.
Just feels like a
you
waste.
gotta have tax write-offs. You give it to government or give it to yourself.
Well, I mean, most of the trips are pleasure trips. I don't write them off.
Gotcha.
But it just feels like a waste. I mean, I'm just trying to like show everyone like why waste money. But like if it was like something that made you feel a lot better and you were a lot more comfortable and it was worth it, then it's worth doing it. To me, I just don't feel the value. I just don't. It's just not that much better to me. I mean, to me, it's just throwing away money. But again, if you were going on these long trips like overseas, then it's worth it. Even though it costs 10 times more, but it's worth it because you're uncomfortable for so long and you could sleep and all these other things. But especially domestically, they don't have beds. They don't have beds or anything. It's just regular, just a little bit larger. To me, the extra foot space, it doesn't do anything for me.
Man, I'm a big guy. I gotta have it. I gotta have the space.
Yeah.
But talk about when she started becoming successful. I know you had a rough relationship with your mom and dad and stuff, some of the family members. What happened when you started making money? People start showing up again. How's your relationships? They start kind of tugging on you a little bit for money and help me here, help me there. What was that
No,
like?
they never did because they knew, I actually had a really bad relationship with my dad too. We didn't even talk about my dad.
Yeah.
But when I left when I was 12, I really haven't had a great relationship with him ever since. So we still talk, a few times a year or a little bit more now, but there's nothing like super, important with the conversations. Just hey, how's it going? This, that, whatever. Yeah. So my parents are very different than me. That's the other thing. My parents are Jewish and they're Orthodox. So when I was young, I grew up Orthodox until I left when I was 12, and I hate religion, and they're very religious. So like we're so different that just that alone makes it to where to me this doesn't make any sense. Religion in general, any religion. So I know there's some people that have faith and it works for them and it makes them better. So that's great, but when you're like really, really into it and, it just doesn't make sense because there's so much that it doesn't make sense to me. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not super close to my parents.
So you don't believe in God?
I wouldn't say I don't believe in God. But I wouldn't say I do believe in God. I'm like, I have no idea. So I just say, look, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but like, I have no idea. So
Right.
I would never like pray to God, but I wouldn't say there is no God. I just don't know. Like, I just admit you don't know. And
Fair. That's fair.
That's
That's a very fair thing. I'm similar, but there are certain things that you just wonder how the hell did it get here? How the hell did man? I mean,
But no matter what
the
it
air
is,
that we breathe.
no matter what it is, then how did that get here?
Right.
If there's a God, how did God get there? Is there a God have a God? Like you could go forever with that type of conversation.
Sure.
So no matter what, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So because it doesn't make sense, I don't even talk about like religious stuff or God stuff ever because I don't it just doesn't really go down much. I'm very rarely even talk about it. But to me, it just doesn't make sense. I just leave it at that. And, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I have no idea who's right or wrong, but everyone thinks they're right. And not everyone could be.
Right. I got you. Absolutely. All right. So this is a part of the show where I'm going to go ahead and give you 3 celebrity names. And I want you to tell me directly what comes to your mind. Okay. What you think of that person. All right. We're going to start out. First one, Grant Cardone.
Grant Cardone. So I heard him speak a few weeks ago at a thing. I like Grant Cardone. Like the stuff that he says is, I agree with most of what he says in his investment stuff. So there's a lot of shady things I hear people say about him, but just from hearing him speak, I don't know him that well. I agree with a lot of what he said.
Yeah. Okay. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. I mean, I like most of his policies and stuff. If I'm definitely Republican, and I definitely would always. First of all, I've never voted in my life, but if I ever voted, I would vote Republican. But I would probably pick a different person to be president than Donald Trump as far as. But I like him a lot as far as the way he thinks. Does his economics and business and everything else. He's the actual person that I think that most successful people do what he does, except most people hide the bad things, where he just kind of doesn't hide it like everyone sees.
Yeah. Andrew Tate.
So Andrew Tate is he was a fighter and he does all this stuff. So I don't think much about Andrew Tate. So you either love Andrew Tate or hate him, from what I understand. I actually watched some of his videos, and most of the videos I watch with Andrew Tate, he says a lot of like really derogatory stuff about a lot of people, but I think I see like little captions of it. I never watched a full thing. So I actually made a YouTube video just going through some of his stuff, and people hated me for doing it because I was like, oh, this guy is like being an asshole. But then I watched like one of his long things, and he's kind of like an asshole, not an asshole sometimes. So I definitely understand what he's doing. I think he does go a little bit too far with most of the stuff he says, though.
Do you think that the camera changes people?
I think the camera changes a lot of people, not everybody.
Yeah. I think that's part of why streaming is so big nowadays.
Yeah.
Is because if you're streaming 24/7, you're seeing the real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're seeing everything that goes on. Whereas, when the camera goes on, you're only seeing that piece of it.
100%.
And you're seeing the highlight reel.
All those 3 people I still respect a lot. I mean, they're all very successful people. It's not easy to be successful. And all 3 of them I respect. I don't have to agree with everything that they say, but, to get to where they're at, like, it's not easy.
Yeah, I agree. Last mostly, Lee, obviously so many kids out there today, a lot of kids today, they have access to the internet. They weren't raised like we were raised. Okay. And when I say that, I mean, back in my time, we had to go outside and play,
Yeah.
we didn't have computers. We didn't have video games. We didn't have access to the internet and the type of
started
things.
to have video games.
Yeah. Right. Atari, Space Invaders,
we
that
had
was
board
big.
games. I played board
Yeah,
games.
we had board games. That's right. Yeah. Shoots and ladders,
Yeah.
type of thing. But Monopoly was huge, because you got to buy stuff,
Big time.
But the reality is, you had to understand going out there and working and work ethics.
Mm-hmm.
These kids today, everybody wants to sit at home and they want to make money.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? And what would you tell if your kid said to you, hey, Dad, I just want to work from my pajamas, work from home, and I want to make money?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you can do it. If you can do it, then you should. I think that most people can't. But if you're good enough to be able to do it, then do it. So I would say try if that's really what you want to do. And then after a certain point, if you're not getting to where you think you should be, then maybe that's not the right thing for you.
Okay. Kid has $100. Last but not least, how should they invest that $100? They got it for their birthday.
I mean, if as a kid, what I would do with it, I would probably save almost the whole thing or figure out a way to make more money on it. When I was a little kid, the only way I knew to make more money was put in the bank and get, whatever BS interest I got. But there's no reason that you need to spend it, most of it. Like you said, I take 10%, 20% and spend it, keep the rest, save it, figure out if there's a way to invest it and make money. That's what I would tell them.
What's your thoughts currently on the recent debate? Obviously we're getting into election year, presidency, what is your thoughts on that?
I mean, my first thought is, holy shit, like how in the world are these the two candidates? But that's my first thought. But second thought is, Biden, I don't even think is mentally competent to do anything, let alone to be president. So I don't understand how anyone could actually want to vote for that guy. But Donald Trump, the economy was good when he was there. He definitely does and says stupid things he shouldn't say. But yeah, Biden, if he actually, I don't see how he could possibly win, but I don't even see how he should even be the person to run. The guy, if that's the president of the United States, like.
Oh, he is. He is the president of the United States.
That's crazy. That's even crazy to think about.
He is.
Then yeah, anything's possible.
There you go. All right. So what's the most amount of money you've ever made one year? I know
the most amount of money I've made in 1 year is probably a little bit over 15 million.
15 million. Mm-hmm. And what
2011.
And what do you think is when is enough? You going to be a billionaire?
Enough's I don't think I'll be a billionaire, but enough's never enough. Enough's enough when you are content with your life and you don't want to progress. I think everybody wants to progress. So whether you have $1 million, $10 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, you still want to feel like you're progressing. Like if you don't progress, you're just, in yourself, you're just not going to feel good about yourself, right? You ever sometimes you're like, you know what? I don't feel good about myself. It's because you didn't progress and whatever. So I think just progressing, helping other people is one way to progress if you're not going to make more money. But yeah, I think just making yourself feel like you're doing better.
Well, there you have it, folks. You heard it right there from Abraham Grabe. If you want to evolve in life, it's a key. You have to evolve. And in order to evolve, you got to surround yourself with people like him. You got to surround yourself with people that have already gone through the trials, already gone through some of the pain, so that you can eliminate some of those processes along the way to continue your growth in life. So remember, as your boy Wham Bam always says, if your life was a movie, would it be worth watching? And if the answer is no, then stop being ordinary and start being extraordinary. This is your boy Wham Bam. Till next Wednesday, I'm out.